Hi, this is Yulia and you're watching my channel, Rebels and Revolutions. We are knee-deep into the Russian Revolution of 1917, and today we are going to debunk a myth. Many believe that Russia was not a thriving society in the decade preceding the revolution, and that there were profound social tensions exacerbated by the First World War. This is not true. In this episode, we'll explore the post-1905 revolution reforms and the economic situation. Russia had its share of social inequalities, inefficiencies, and injustices like any industrialized nation. Yet, after the defeat at the hands of the Japanese and the resulting revolution of 1905, Tsar Nicholas and many other Russians realized the need for political reforms. Thus, the economic growth, which generated a new class of bankers, traders, and industrialists, was accompanied by a slow but inevitable political change. In 1906, Sergei Witte issued a manifesto announcing a convocation of the Duma. This was the same Witte that was called out from his retirement to negotiate the peace treaty with Japan, a treaty mediated by none other than Teddy Roosevelt. The manifesto was a step towards a representative government. The Duma was designed as a lower house of parliament, with the State Council of Imperial Russia acting as the upper house. The subsequent October manifesto set clear limits on what the Duma could do, while reaffirming the autocratic powers of the Tzar. Yet, the very existence of this legislative body acted as a pressure valve, dampening the revolutionary unrest while allowing for an incredible economic miracle that followed during the next decade. To be sure, the true magician who performed this miracle was Pyotr Stolypin. Being a large landowner himself, Stolypin came to appreciate the European style of private landholdings. In his mind, privatization had the potential to convert communally oriented Russian peasants into law-abiding farmers rather than revolutionary recruits. When he became the interior minister, he launched one of the most ambitious and successful land reforms in history. The reforms converted communal strips of land into private holdings. His new law freed peasants from any legal obligations to local communes by offering them cheap credit through the Peasant Land Bank. This created almost 3 million private farmers. He also lifted restrictions of internal movement for peasants. Stolypin offered massive incentives to those willing to move to Siberia and Central Asia to cultivate land there. Almost 3.5 million peasants moved, deepening Russian ties with peripheral areas of the empire. His agrarian reforms massively expanded the acreage devoted to agriculture while improving agricultural productivity. By 1911, Russia achieved a previously unheard of export surplus of 13.5 million tons of grain. This surplus increased even more dramatically in 1913, reaching 20 million tons. The surplus meant foreign machinery and technologies could be purchased to jumpstart Russian industrial production. Stolypin was a massive fan of the American and British infrastructure models, especially of railways. He set out to make Russia successful and created a sophisticated network of railways throughout the empire. At that, he succeeded brilliantly. The railways allowed the riches of Siberia to further boost the economy, which grew at an astounding rate of 10% year after year. Like China in the early 21st century, Russia was the economic miracle of the day in the early 20th century. It became a huge importer of capital and people. The Russian economic potential was truly vast. Stolypin was convinced that the more the economy rose, the quicker the social tensions in Russian society would resolve themselves. Peasants would turn into property owners with something to lose, and would be much less susceptible to revolutionary notions. A post-1917 resistance to Soviet authorities offered by a large share of more enterprising peasants served as a sad testimony of Stolypin's success. While income inequalities in the urban area continued to widen, wages were rising, leading to a notable increase in the overall standard of living. Stolypin showed remarkable foresight with another prediction. He felt that peaceful coexistence between workers and owners of capital could be found by making employees part owners. So shares of various enterprises were reserved for individual ownership by each worker. One would think that most progressively minded people in Russia would be in support of these initiatives. The problem was that the very same revolutionary leaders who were championing the cause of workers and peasants actually had no desire to see the lives of workers and peasants improved. This was especially true if the improvement came from the Tsar's government actions. If the workers' situation were to become less desperate, who would be in support of the next revolution? Allegedly, even Lenin himself once said that if Stolypin were to succeed, there would be no chance of a Russian revolution. Sadly, much of Russian literature, especially during the Soviet times, focused on Stolypin's brutality. True, while he was trying to address the most fundamental reasons for revolution, he imposed strict laws directed against those who were using violence to achieve revolutionary goals. Note that one of these revolutionary criminals planted a bomb in Stolypin's summer house, killing his 15-year-old daughter. By using tough security measures against revolutionaries, Pyotr Stolypin was able to curb the revolutionary violence. What is often not recognized is how Stolypin deprived the revolutionaries of future reinforcements through economic incentives. It is amazing how many different reforms he was able to implement during a very short period of time. He enacted a progressive tax system, he pushed through laws that protected citizens from arbitrary arrests, and created extended insurance benefits for state workers. And he had much to accomplish going forward. All he needed was peace in Russia, both internally and externally. Each time yet another Balkan crisis erupted, Stolypin acted as a roadblock to the pan-Slavic initiatives that were becoming oh so popular among the Russian elites. His views were rather simple. Russia should keep away from any international entanglements. In one of his famous interviews, Pyotr Stolypin said, "Give me 20 years of peace and you will not recognize Russia." Neither him nor Russia were fortunate enough to have this luxury. On October 14, 1911, while attending an opera performance in Kiev, he was shot by the revolutionary D.G. Bagrov. While the full truth of his assassination may never be known, one of very few individuals who could have saved Russia from the revolutionary disaster was no more. Just 6 short years later, Stolypin's wish for a 20-year peace was dead as well, as Russia joined the Entente Cordiale to fight Germany and Austro-Hungary in what later became known as the First World War. This will be the subject of our next episode in this series on the Russian Revolution. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing, and watching my channel, Rebels and Revolutions.